And welcome to the broadcast. I'm happy to have at this table Town Councilor at Large, Aaron Dushku. Aaron, welcome to Watertown Cable's review and interview or conversations for the folks at home.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's we have some time to talk a little bit about some of the issues, but I have to say that if there's a war on signs, you won. I mean, you can't go down a street in Watertown without seeing an Aaron Dushku sign, and that's I know the work that takes, and no one's going to accuse you of not being a hard worker, a hard campaigner.
Thank you. It's early still, I think, but we definitely did get a good jump on that, so it feels good.
And you're out there and you're at events, and I think you came in. This is the second term that you're running for, and as a first termer, you topped the ticket, and well, that's a feather in anybody's cap, but for first time through, it's remarkable.
Thank you.
Well, during your first term, you certainly came into a semi-hornet's nest. There was some turmoil in many areas, but one of the first things that you faced was, I think, well, we'll talk about is where the schools, the superintendent, school committee, town council president, administration, that wasn't working too well.
Yeah, I think there was some history there that left some sour taste in people's mouths.
Well, there was a disconnect, and that might be a little strong term, but I saw that it wasn't going well. There was lack of confidence, transparency.
Communication. I think communication was a huge one, and I'll just take it from there. You're definitely right. I felt it. I had a lot of friends that felt it. It was one of the main reasons I ran for town council, because people asked me to run because they knew that I made a decision to come back to Watertown with my kids, which is not an easy decision. I have my roots here. I wanted to be near my family, and I knew people here. I came through the schools, and I thought it was a good enough experience to put my kids through it. But I didn't want to joke around with my kids' education, and I think a lot of people felt the same way. So, yeah, we worked really hard on that, and I think I was in the right time at the right place, because a lot of people in Watertown were thinking the same thing, and they saw a light in me, I guess, and it was great. It was very, very great, and we topped the ticket, like you said, and since then I'm really proud of what we've accomplished, and I'm proud of the work that I've done as far as what a town councilor can do for the schools, which is actually more limited than I thought, because I had a lot of ideas coming in as to what I wanted to do, but kind of settling on what those things are, budget being one of them, communication also being another. I think I've done a good job of it. But that being said, I wouldn't take all the credit. I mean, there's a lot of people who've worked really hard on it. And,
but as a town councilor, I mean, I know you're not in the school committee, but your voices represents the populace, your voters, and the schools and superintendents and school committee. They're compelled to at least listen to what you have to say.
Sometimes.
Well,
yeah. I mean, sometimes I wish a little more, but you're right. And I think that another thing I learned a lot about during that whole schools around the budget time, before the budget, was that the town sees us come, and there's that dramatic town council meeting at the end when the budget's being looked at, and they read through every line item, and the councilor can say pass or not on the budget, and there's a lot of build up to that, and that's the end all be all moment, but that is by far not the moment where you're going to see fireworks happening. What I learned was that behind the scenes, in the weeks and months before that, is where all the action is happening, and I did a lot of talking and a lot of debating, in private conversations with people, colleagues and the manager, and school committee members and residents, and it was not easy, but I was thrilled with what happened. Both times. So it's been 2 budgets we've been through now.
Yeah, government is a complicated process, and and there's a lot of tenacity to sticking with it, with your positions or what you're advocating for, and think you showed a certain amount of that tenacity.
Thanks.
Right. Well, and some of the things that during this term is this huge development, community development, traffic mitigation, parking, and that's another major issue that you have been dealing with.
Of course, it was I would say the second main pillar of my campaign when I was in the campaign for election the first time around, was to control development. I didn't think of it as much back then, but it's very intimately tied with education, because to do the kinds of budget raising that we've done in the last 2 years, that money's got to come from somewhere. And we're fortunate in Watertown that we are a hot place to develop, and many communities would kill for the kind of investment we've had. And I've had to do a lot of soul searching on what is a good development versus what isn't a good development. And a few times I advocated for no on a development that I didn't have we don't actually have a say in any individual development. Our job is to make policy about the zoning ordinance and certain things about how the town will be developed. But when a guy walks in the door and says, I want to develop this parcel, we can't say no. That's the zoning and the planning board's job to say no.
But it's your job to bring the spotlight down on it.
I try.
And to pick out the areas that you're concerned with, the areas or that you think are a value added. You're an elected official. You represent us, and we expect it through your voice.
It's one of those unofficial roles of the council. We come to the planning board meetings, we come to the ZBA meetings. That's why, it was more than just a 2-meeting-a-month commitment, this town council thing. I've spoken at a lot of those, and I think they went well. But I didn't mean to minimize that, because we do that. But I've also really realized that we can have a huge impact in the policy. And so maybe today we don't stop the project we didn't like, despite our best efforts at those meetings with the ZBA and the planning board. But we know what it is about that project that we don't like, so we can change our zoning ordinance so that next time another project like that comes around, they won't be designing a thing like that. Mm-hmm. And we've had excellent progress on that front. Since I was elected, we mandated community meetings so that a developer has to talk to the community about their plans, and I'm actually advocating right now in the council for mandating a second community meeting. So that's in the works. And then we had this big group coming up from some of the neighborhoods, all around town, with a petition for a moratorium on development, which I thought was a good idea because it was going really fast. And I got to give credit to the staff here at the town. They saw that hearing coming, because when a petition comes in, we have to call a meeting. So they saw it coming, they scrambled, and they put together this great idea for the design guidelines. And I'm sure you've talked a lot about that, and I'm really happy that came about.
I want to touch on transportation. You are kind of a drilled down guy on that, and where are we with that, and what are your vision of?
Well, it started off as, actually it was one of my first meetings as a councilor. Somebody came in and said, will you support us on this? And we made some motions about forming another committee in the town, and they didn't go well. I lost that vote. It was like one of my first motions. It was very clumsy, but it got voted down. So what we did was we formed a citizens committee, and I'm proud that I'm one of the founding members of the steering committee of the Watertown Public Transit Task Force. And that has accomplished a lot. And we've talked to the MBTA several times. We had a relationship with the general manager. She resigned. We've had them here. I would like to say that I worked very hard with our legislators on getting these 2 big transportation studies coming now for the Arsenal corridor and for the Fresh Pond Parkway Mount Auburn Street intersection, which is hell if you've ever been on the 71 or the 73 bus trying to get to Harvard Square. And then this little thing called the TMA.
That's sounds like a shuttle service.
Yeah, but it's so much more. The shuttle service, obviously, we wouldn't do it without a shuttle service. We need that. That's when we said, MBTA, you guys keep making promises, and it's never going to happen unless we do it ourselves. So we've got developers committed to it, and we've got some plans in the works for a consultant who's going to help us set it up. We allocated some money for that to pay the consultant, and there will be a shuttle. And I'm proud to say that I think it'll happen in the next year. But the TMA is more. It's about analyzing how people travel to and from Watertown, and actually starting to measure some of those things. And there's actually a separate motion and a committee referral that I push for as part of the Pleasant Street rezoning, to actually start requiring developers to collect data on those things. You
Well,
got me going. It's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that's very interesting. You
Yeah,
said I was
know.
a drill down guy, and I started drilling down.
I just want to make sure we hit a couple of other
Okay.
spots that you have been front and center, at least a huge interest in. That is the bring your own bottle to small restaurant. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I know I know what it means, but what you are an advocate of that. Tell us about it.
Well, you know that we've made a petition to the state legislature for more liquor licenses. There'll be 15 more liquor licenses coming to Watertown. It's a good thing for Watertown because because every one of those restaurant bills has a little line item on it for the tax that we can get from a restaurant. So that's going to be great for revenue, and it's going to be great to stimulate the economy of Watertown. Not everybody can afford a liquor license, and not everybody will get them because there's a finite quantity. So for me, I wanted more. I wanted a small local independent person who has a great idea for a restaurant to actually have an opportunity to go into business and survive. And we've seen examples. There was one right on Main Street that had so many things going for it, but they just couldn't hang in this environment without being able to serve a bottle of wine. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way dining works. And so it was an idea that I had that I brought to the very first meeting when I was a counselor on this topic of expanded liquor licenses, and everybody said, yeah, it's a good idea, we'll talk about it later. And I patiently waited and waited and waited. I brought it up a couple of meetings later, waited, and little by little it got in the mind of some of the counselors, and we
developed legs and
we started
momentum.
talking, and Councilor Woodland, being a law student, wrote up some great text for the ordinance, and we did a lot of discussion with the community, with the different departments who'd be involved, and it's up for vote on Tuesday finally. So
Really?
I think it's going to be great for local business, and it's going to the way I look at it is it's like making Watertown even more of a destination for dining. It's going to stimulate innovation and like culinary innovation with restaurants, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, I remember when I first heard it, my first thought was, well, if I spent X amount of dollars on a liquor license, would that devalue what I paid? And how does that work?
Well, there was a concern there just with the 15. Because if we're going to bring 15 more in, people would think it would devalue their current licenses. Well, there's a new pricing structure for them. They're not going to change the old liquor license ways. There's just going to be an annual fee, which is much less than what theirs is. So that's part of the 15. But as far as the BYOB is concerned, there's no way they can compete with a person who has a full liquor license.
Of course, yeah.
They're still making so much money on the sales, the value of that alcohol that they're marking up, that there's no way.
Well, Aaron, my compliments to you in picking that ball, and you're almost to the goal line, and
Thank you.
at least you're going to get a vote coming up.
Thanks.
Well, I can't tell you, it's really a pleasure and talking with you and having you at this table to just share some of your time and your thoughts with me and the voters at home. But at this point, we're running down, I want to give you the last 2 minutes to talk to the voters and the folks at home, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Hello, Watertown. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today, and thanks for the opportunity to serve you. Service is a value that's very strong in my family, and it's something that I'll never stop doing, whether I'm elected or not. You'll see me around. Some of the topics that we talked about today, I kind of went off the rails on. I'm very excited, as you can see, about these things that I work on. I've put a lot of work into this job, and if you don't agree with every decision I've ever made as a counselor, and I know there's been a few, at least you have to admit that. And I'm going to keep on doing it as long as you'll let me. The issues of public transit are not just about transportation. They're about social equity. They're about people who can't afford to travel in a car every day. They're about the environment, which I haven't even touched on today. It's a very important issue for me also, cleaning up our river. We're at the goal line on the stormwater ordinance. We're having hearings this month to finalize that. There's so many good things in Watertown that are happening, and some people get a hold of some of the bad things and they just ride that hard, and they want to be cynical about it. But let me tell you, we've had a great 2 years. We've worked harder than many town councils in recent memory. People tell me that all the time, and I'm very proud to say that I've helped push the ball on a lot of these issues, and I hope that you recognize that. I know. That's about all I can say today. Thank you.